Welcome to the episode again without my co-host Matt the Family Guy. It's probably not going to be as funny without my buddy, but you should find it interesting. I will be interviewing a couple in Ecuador, in Guayaquil, Ecuador, who have been friends of mine since 2001 when they taught with me in Honduras. However, it's been 17 years in between Honduras and Guayaquil, so I think you'll find this a very interesting international teacher podcast episode. One last warning, I do want to apologize for some of the audio. I couldn't get it quite right. Brynn is talking to us from a phone in the backyard, while Shannon is sitting in the living room, and it's a little bit difficult to bring up their audio, so I do apologize for that, but I think you'll find this very interesting. Let's get right to the show. Welcome to the International Teacher Podcast with your host, Greg, the single guy, and Matt, the family guy. We're recording episodes from around the globe to tell you about the best-kept secret in education. That's right, it's teaching overseas. We're glad to have you. Let me introduce Shannon and Brynn. I met them back in Honduras back in 2001. We got on an airplane together and went and lived there, and you guys were next to me for 2 years, right?
2 years. All right.
Yeah.
And then you guys went back to the States, and the last I talked to you, you were on a farm in Iowa. And where are you guys?
Yep, we're in Guayaquil, Ecuador.
How big is Guayaquil, by the way?
3 million people.
3 million?
Yeah. I think officially it's like 2.8. Big.
Oh, it's huge. It's big. That's bigger than where I'm at, that's for sure.
For a farm boy, yeah, it's big.
How many people were in your city in Iowa?
Where I was growing up, 100.
100, and you're now in a city of 3 million. How about you, Brynn?
I would say that I'm from East Tennessee, so I was in a tiny town there too. So it's been interesting, and it's been 17 years since we've lived in a big city, honestly, since Honduras. So even our small town of Cedar Falls, pales in comparison. So it's very different, very different. A lot of cement, a lot of city stuff we've had to get used to, but that's the tip of the iceberg for the changes coming down here, I guess.
And that's why I wanted to talk to you guys on podcast, because after 17 years of all things, you've come back overseas. So what made you guys come back overseas?
I do think it's unique. Ever since we returned to the States after our stint in Honduras, I've really been begging to do this again this whole time. I think it was a mixture of us sort of getting rooted, and it just becomes more difficult to leave. You have a home, you have more kids, you have a job you have been seasoned in, and to pick up and leave and quit your job just was a whole different ballgame this time than when we did it the first time. We were right out of college. We had 2 duffel bags of stuff. Uh-oh, is Greg frozen?
No, I'm not frozen.
He just doesn't move much.
I'm just listening intently. I'm listening to the audio. I'll move my head every once in a while.
In that aspect, it just made it more difficult to do it the second time around once you get rooted. I think we're risk takers, and it was worth it to us. There are a lot of factors that made us do this again, and we're glad.
We had to get to a financial situation that was feasible, and for our kids to really want to move. I mean, when we asked them, that was the biggest thing. We asked them before we went, and I don't think they would have been ready even 2 years prior to this. They were just in the right place, feeling it. And this was before the pandemic, right before the pandemic hit, that we told them. So there was no worries about that, no worries at all. And they were just ready to go and experience another culture. And I don't think they would have been ready for that.
You're right.
Tell me about your kids then. I know that one was down with us in Honduras and he was 5, but now it's been years later. How many kids do you have with you down in Guayaquil right now?
We have 2 more kids. We had gave birth to our middle child in San Pedro Sula in Honduras, and Uncle Greg was there for that. So, I mean, you weren't at the birth, but...
No, we have that 3 men and a baby picture.
Yeah, you and Michael and Shannon. So yeah, we brought 2 teenagers this time, which also changed the whole demographic of it all. You know, you're right. When we came down with Joe, he was 4, and it was very different. He was always with us. He was so little that 3 of us did everything together. And choosing to do this later on in life, when you have teenagers, it really changed what we were looking for where we wanted to go. Safety being a factor, and accessibility and things to do, you know.
And you also chose the school based on what your kids are going to go through also, because you didn't do that with San Pedro Sula. You had a 5-year-old. You didn't care as much, but now you had teenagers and you had to talk a little bit about the school and make decisions before you guys even committed to that school, based not on just what you're teaching, but also what your 2 kids in teenage years would get along with, right?
And they're used to a K-12 school that has 300 kids in it, and that's the kind of school we chose. We chose a small school that they would be comfortable in, or at least have one thing that was familiar, and that's knowing everybody in your school. So we did choose a really small school that's very similar to what they have been in. Yeah.
And Quincy's going to be graduating from IEA. We wanted to make sure that he was going to do well and be prepared for college back in the States.
I go back through all the stories, you know, good and bad. I go back through all the memories of living with you guys for 3 years in Honduras. And I think for the first year, the 3 of us went to that little place and drank beer after school, didn't we? I mean, we're adults here. We could talk about these fun things. You know, living overseas, it's a whole different culture. We learned Spanish from Hermes and what's his wife's name?
Maria.
Yeah, Maria. They had that little caseta, which is a little restaurant right next to our apartment, because the 3 of us lived right next to each other. And I guess the listeners don't know that. There's lots of hidden stories back there. Oh my gosh. And by the way, while we're talking about one little caveat here, Shannon, do you remember when we hooked up internet? You hooked up internet at your apartment and we all found out about it. And since we had the 4 together, I'll never forget going down and getting more wire and more cabling. We took your internet feed and we fed all 4 apartments. And didn't you even wire up for the guards? Or did I do that after you guys left?
I did. No. Oh, you must have done that afterwards.
After you left, I set up the guards with the internet in their little shack, too. It was these stories that come back even after years, just seeing you guys or hearing you guys. Now you're reliving new ones, but you're in a new city, and Ecuador is amazing. I mean, the Spanish is really easy to understand, I think, from our point of view. What do you think, Shannon?
I think it is. But like Brynn said, there's still a lot that we're getting used to, and we're not exposed to it enough. We've been here for 6 months, 7 months, I don't know.
8 months. 8 months.
8 months, but we're still haven't had enough exposure because of this. We haven't been able to go out. We haven't seen people, and the mask. The masks make things difficult. You know from teaching.
Right.
When the kids have their mask over their face, you can't hear a word they say.
No, especially like a kindergartner that's whispering to you, and they're all talking at the same time, and the mask is there.
Yep. So, yeah.
Yeah, you've got 20 Charlie Brown teachers in your room.
I never thought about it. It looks like Charlie Brown.
Yeah, and for me, I was really concerned with that because I am teaching kindergarten, and I'm, preschool. I would say that's the other difference between this school and the one we were in Honduras is that these kids' English isn't as good at the kindergarten level, and it's very important that they see my mouth to be able to make the sounds. The missing sounds that they would have if they could see how I was enunciating the word and moving my lips and my tongue. So I will say that when we were online during the pandemic teaching, that was an advantage because we had our masks off and I would have them repeat the sounds. But now that we're back in person, it's difficult. I did get some masks with the clear front, but they fog up. It's not working very well. So I'm just very articulate. when I talk.
Awesome. Hey, you guys are talking about school a little bit, and you were online for a while. Can you tell me a little bit about your school? Shannon, you're teaching sixth, and Brynn, you're teaching kinder. Can you guys each chime in a little bit about what your school experience is about, what your classrooms are like?
Being online, I've actually kind of enjoyed it in some ways, and I've got to get back to some of the technology, some of the programs. There's all kinds of new technology coming out, it seems like daily, and I'm finding new resources. Resources don't seem to be a problem anymore, and I know, when we were teaching way back when, resources were a problem. I can think like you and I maybe are the first ones in our school to use an online grade book.
You remember we set that up wrong before the guys even came in and did it? You and I set up all the grades wrong. You remember that with Rediker?
I do, but I think we just kept with it.
We did. You're right. We were both cutting edge back then, right? But you've got a lot of support now. And when you came into the school, are you still teaching online, Shannon?
No, it's a hybrid model. So I only have 13 students total. 4 of those have been coming in person, and the other 9 or so, those have been online.
You have 13 total students. So even if you're in school, you'd have 13 students in your classroom?
Yeah, we are at a very small school. We really lucked out, the both of us. The other classes are double that, but that's still 20 to 24 students. Seems to be the average in the rest of the elementary. But for some reason, we got sixth, and we have great class sizes. And the class sizes above 6th grade. Piper is just saying tonight, I think she has 10 kids in her class. Quincy has 14.
Are you a K to 12 school?
Pre-K.
Pre-K through 12. Yeah. And Brynn, how many students do you have?
I have a total of 13. Yep. And I'm also doing the hybrid, the opposite of Shannon. Most of my kids come in person. I have a couple that are home. So I have 3 computers running in my room. I'm throwing screens up on the wall so my kids in person can see what I'm saying to the online kids. I would have 21 students, but especially in the lower elementary, a lot of kids dropped out of our school. Typically, our school has closer to about 400 students, and we've lost greater than 100 students due to the pandemic, parents pulling them out because tuition costs. It's hard enough to do the hybrid, to teach in person at the same time I'm teaching on the Zoom. And if I had 5 more kids in my class, it would just be, it would be a nightmare.
Horrible. I know kindergartners, I can handle like 10 at a time, which I'm doing now hybrid. So we have 10 in the morning and 10 in the afternoon. Our classes are maxed out at 20. And, for listeners that haven't been overseas before, one of the big perks is the small classroom sizes. Not every school. How many did you have in Honduras back in the day, Shannon? I think you had like 30.
Yeah, I think it was close to 30.
And Brynn, you had a whole different career. Like you were the director of the preschool back in Honduras. How big were the classroom sizes back when you were doing that?
They were 25 in the nursery, pre-K, and K, yeah.
How many students did you have in your class in the States, Shannon?
Again, we were a small school, and I was teaching Spanish, so I would have anywhere between 4 for Spanish 4. Spanish 1 would be around 26.
Oh, yeah, I guess I'm mixing apples and oranges. We've all taught so many different situations with class sizes and subjects. But it's great that you have such a few students. And even though we have a pandemic, it's still tough to teach both online and in class at the same time. I keep going back to Hondo, but that's what we were living, our first time overseas. Do you remember, Shannon, it was back in 2001 and to 2 and 3. Do you remember if we wanted the projector, we had to check it out from the superintendent of the school? And then we would bring it home on the weekends and tell everybody that was for working on curriculum or something, and we'd play video games.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Ever since then, I've had a projector to watch TV. I've had to, but in the classrooms, I'm sure you guys are set up. We have, smart boards. We have different things and projectors and.
We do. We both do. Yeah.
How are your classrooms set up? Are they pretty is your tech pretty up to date?
Our tech is great. Yeah. They gave us both laptops when we came, which of course that didn't happen in Honduras. So we have our own laptops, we have the school laptop, and there's a computer in the classroom already. So there's three great cameras, great microphones. The ones that you see in the catalogs that you could never afford, those are the ones that we have.
Classroom libraries?
The materials at this school are amazing. I was worried because teaching kindergarten, you need stuff, and I shouldn't have been. That's been amazing.
Depends on the schools, of course. These are well-known schools that we're at. They have a lot of resources in the classroom, out of the classroom. They don't just say we have 20,000 volumes in our library. You never know. The library might be flooded with mud, but you need classroom supplies, right? You guys sound like you're really happy about that, because that's a number one issue with a lot of people. Americans spend $400 to $600. I guess that was a number years ago that teachers were spending every year. These overseas schools, a lot of them are so well stocked. They take care of us because they want us to stay, right?
We can talk a little bit about the demographics of our classrooms, and I think comparatively, even in Honduras, that all has stayed the same. I don't care where you go. I don't care if it's private or public. My classroom has the same kind of kids I would have in the States. There may be a demographic change as far as, financial availability. You tend to have families with means when you're teaching overseas because these schools cost tuition and, the schools are hiring expat teachers to come in. So the schools have money and the parents usually have money. But the kids themselves, they're the same. You have the same number of kids who need help. You have the same number of kids who are bouncing off the walls, and you have the same number of, gifted students. So in that essence, the kids are kids wherever you go. And I think that's been one thing that's really settled in with me on this trip is finding that out. Again, kids are kids. I've just really been on my toes this year. I haven't taught in a classroom in a very long time, and it's been really good for me.
Are your kids from different countries too? Like, what kind of a mix-up do you guys have at your school?
So that's a little bit different than in Honduras, because in Honduras we had the majority. No.
Well, that was a host national school, even though it was called international.
Yeah.
It was a host national school, and it was mainly Hondurans. We had about a couple Koreans, that's Koreans that would work at the shops there with their families. If they stayed 9 years, they'd go back to Korea, and they could have international status back home. And then they had like 1% gringos, Yeah, your school's different now. What's it like?
It has many more Americans than in Honduras.
I think Shannon wants to talk.
Oh, go ahead, Shannon.
No, it's okay.
Some things never change, Greg.
I would say this is definitely the most diverse class I've ever seen. For just having 13 kids, I've got one girl from India. I have 3 kids from Mexico. I have a kid from Venezuela, another one from Guatemala. I have one that's now in Saudi Arabia that his parents work in the consulate that's from the U.S. I only have 4 or 5 kids from Ecuador originally. I've got kids from all over the world, and when we're doing projects in social studies, talking about India, talking about China, I have 2 Chinese girls. So I've got kids from all over, and when we're doing world history, ancient history, it's great that actually this year they are teaching me way more than I can teach them, and letting them run with it and share all of their experiences and tell me, nope, the book's wrong or whatever, and then we look a little deeper into it, and you're right. A lot of people say this, not what the book was saying. So I would also say, as far as demographics, that unlike past schools and even schools in the U.S., this school does have a great support services, both from the kids that are on IEPs to our gifted kids. I haven't seen support services like this in a long time. That's been very, very beneficial. Not only are my kids from a lot of different countries, but they're on a lot of different levels. Yeah,
having that support in the classroom as a homeroom teacher, having other people that are doing spec ed stuff is so important, or language skills. I mean, in some schools, they just sort of shove them off into ESL, but they don't even have a language problem. It's their 3rd or 4th language, but they have social emotional problems and things like that. Brynn, what are your demographics like in your class, just in your classroom?
Most of my kids are Ecuadorian. I do have 2 American students, and get this, one Honduran, and guess where she went to school last year?
EIS.
And Denise from EIS got a hold of me, and I did a quick training for her teachers last weekend because they're just starting hybrid, and they wanted to talk to a teacher who's doing it, so she asked me to Zoom, and we had so much fun.
I miss that school. Don't you guys miss EIS, Escuela Internacional San Pedrana down in San Pedro Sula? We'll give a shout out to a couple different people there, of course.
Well, for sure, Denise is still there, and there were 4 other teachers that were under me when I was there that were on the Zoom. So it was, it's true. I miss the whole experience. We have so many memories, and it seems like yesterday.
Because you used to be in charge of that part of the school, and Denise has been there for quite a while. Of course, I wanted to share this with you guys while we're talking about past years, and we keep bringing it up. But one time I went to the ASA Fair, which is Association of South American Schools. I went to one of their conferences, and the conference was, of all places, was held in Quito. So I went to Quito, and I was at the Cotopaxi School, and I ran into Chantel, who taught with us in 5th grade in Honduras for that 1 year before your second year. Chantel was there, and she's married to a guy named Andy. They were teaching at that school, and I went out to dinner with them. I mean, here I am in Ecuador. Chantel walks up and says, "Hi, how are you?" I couldn't believe it. And my second small world story, the last time I was in Ecuador was Galapagos. And I have to give a shout out to my friend Tim, because when I went to Galapagos, I went on a dive trip. We stayed on an island and went diving around one of the islands instead of a liveaboard. And it was a group from Venezuela. And on the way there, I must have either tweeted out or I think I put it on Facebook, which I rarely do. And I put it out that I was going to Galapagos. And my friend Tim from high school, his wife was on Facebook and says, "Oh, well, Tim's on his way down to Galapagos too. Maybe you'll see him." And I'm like, yeah, chance in hell I'm going to see him. But I'm in there in Galapagos on the island for 2 days. I walk out onto the dock, and here comes this little dinghy coming from one of the sailboats out in the marina. And there's one of my best friends from high school in the Galapagos, thousands and thousands of miles away, sitting there. My world is getting so small. So do you guys have any small world stories?
It definitely hit me like a ton of bricks when I ended up with a kid that came, of all the kids in the whole world that I could have.
In your classroom.
Who has moved from my old school from 17 years ago in a different country is now in my classroom. That definitely hit me. I do think this is just such a small world, and we can make it smaller. It's amazing the connections that we made in Honduras. Those are lifelong relationships for life. Yeah, forever. So we're doing the same thing here with the few people we've met here as far as community. But also, we're sponsoring a student from here next year who's coming home with us and going to go to UNI.
Really?
I'll put a plug in for him because I'm doing a fundraiser for him because we can't afford his whole tuition. We're going to help open up this world even a little bit more. We're going to take somebody from here and help them out over there. So we're excited about that.
Never cease to amaze me. Wow. I don't even know where to go from there. You guys have got a great school, it sounds like, and you like the city as much as you've seen it. Do you guys have a car?
Yeah, we bought a car before we even got down here.
How'd you do that? Did you just go online, or did you buy it from somebody? You probably bought it from somebody already there.
We bought it from somebody that had left. Kind of tricky because we didn't know these people. We didn't know if there was really a car here. Brynn just sent the money to them and
just sent them all the
we had a car.
Yeah. Did you give them all the money?
Hopefully
like if they wanted
car.
like $3,000 for the car and you gave them $1,500 and then you get the half when they get the second half when you make when you get there, or
no,
first of all,
we gave it all to them.
Oh my God.
I wish it was a $3,000 car, but in Ecuador, cars actually increase in value. So a 10-year-old car is worth more than a new car.
That sounds like Venezuela.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they hold their value there. What kind of car is it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little Suzuki. We love it.
Suzuki.
Yeah, it's a little, SUV, little bitty SUV.
Well, and we've done this before overseas, but what people out there that are listening to may not understand is they probably wouldn't buy a car like you and I did over the phone or, through a friend of a friend of somebody teaching there. But it is a tight-knit community in the school, usually oversees the tight-knit community of the teachers that take care of each other. And we move the things on. Like when you left Honduras, you sold me your car. I remember when the maid, because having a maid is sort of like second nature, maid, nanny, whatever, live-in maid. And I remember Olga was our maid. And that summer, do you remember when you went home, Shannon and Brynn? Both you went home that summer and I stayed and traveled. I think I dove that summer with Ron. What I remember most is when you came back, you thought that Shannon had bought a brand new pair of shoes. But he hadn't bought a brand new pair of shoes because Olga had washed Shannon's old ratty painting shoes. Do you remember that? With all the paint all over them? She had been so bored that summer, she washed the basketball. She didn't have anything to do except clean, so she cleaned the basketball because Shannon put up a basketball hoop, which everybody loved. And then Olga washed your shoes, and she took all the paint off of them. And you're like, no, those are my old shoes, and they look brand new. She was amazing.
Yeah. We have an Olga here named Mercedes, and it
keeps the marriage together, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
I tell everybody that it keeps your marriage together. She washed, your maid, and that's very normal, especially South America and Central. Having a maid come into your house. Does she live with you?
She doesn't live with us.
She's 2 days a week.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a little bit different, but she comes 2 days a week and she does your wash and she does a little bit of cooking maybe, but mainly washing and cleaning the house.
No, she does everything.
Right.
She cooks, she cleans, she does everything. Yeah, she takes care of the dog.
She cooks so well. I mean, she makes whatever you want. We had Chinese last night. We're gonna have some sort of chicken. Oh, the fried chicken. She makes awesome fried chicken, lasagna, you name it. Some of the local dishes.
Olga only made two things. She made chicken and rice, and then she'd make rice and chicken, and then the third day she'd just make rice or chicken.
And none of it was good.
Mercedes sounds fantastic. I wish I could have her here in the Middle East with me. That would be great. This is the first time I have not had a maid. In all my years overseas, I just don't have one. It's a different situation. Part of the living overseas is having a maid, and I remember when we first got down there, and then she started to work for us as well as for you. She lived with you guys, and you took good care of her because it's a symbiotic, right? It's a symbiotic relationship.
Oh, yeah.
We take care of the people that work for us because we're from overseas. We have a little bit more money, but we spread that and support the local people by giving them a job. And you guys take good care of her. I remember how well you took care of Olga. And I continued that after you left. But now you've got a maid, and I'm sure you look out for her more than another person that lives there might, right? You want to talk a little bit about that?
I would love to talk about that. It's been difficult for me to get a maid this go-round. It's one thing coming out of college. I was 22, right? I was really young.
You robbed the cradle, Shannon.
And so, having someone come in and do my laundry, well, I had just barely done my, now that I'm grown, having her come in and the floors and the bathrooms and do the laundry and cook supper, and it was a huge adjustment for me, very uncomfortable. Not because she did anything wrong, but because I feel like this entitled American. I'm sitting here fiddling around on the computer while this lady's cleaning my clothes. This is insane. It wasn't comfortable for me.
I hope you still feel that way in about 5 more years, because some of the teachers that I'm with that have help at their homes, they treat them a lot differently after X amount of years overseas. And some people lose sight of that. I love the fact that you still have that empathy, and I always try to also. Some people go overseas and feel entitled like the British colonies back in the day. I mean, not now, but they feel like, oh, clean my plate, and they won't even bend over and pick up a piece of trash, or they won't clean the table or anything like that. Whereas we would always, you'd probably still do that. You help clean the table, even though that's what she's doing. You might go in and wash a few dishes with her, or do a little bit of laundry with her, or set things aside, make things easier for her. And I have a lot of people around me that don't do that. It's terrible. So I'm glad that you're talking about this.
I definitely think that it matters where you are too, because I've actually had this discussion with my Honduran parent, because the treatment of helpers, my ladies,
In some countries, it's men,
different. It's very different in Ecuador than in Honduras, and Mercedes is not used to the way that we're treating her, to the point where she and I have had so many discussions, and I've called my Spanish-speaking friends in the U.S. to talk to her, please tell her I'm a nice lady, because she was terrified of me.
And you'd rather have as like a part of the family, right?
I kept telling her that. You are part of us. Like, she would say she wouldn't ask for things, and she wouldn't eat, and she wouldn't take any cola, or she wouldn't.
She was tiptoeing around your family, is what you mean,
very,
right?
Very scared. And
right. Right.
And for Christmas, we gave her a good Christmas bonus, and it was very overwhelming for her. And I had a Spanish-speaking friend here with me just to tell her, hey, you make my life so much easier, and I'm so happy that you're a part of us. And she was crying. No one's ever done that for her. There definitely came a point with her where she put her foot down and was like, hey, lady, this is my job. You don't get out of here. I would go to wash a dish, and she would snatch it from me and scold me. This is my job. It helped me remind me, she's right. This is her job.
And she takes
pride in it. Yeah, she takes pride in it. She doesn't want me to help. And what am I doing?
She needs to really wash his dirty underwear, right? You're not doing any of that anymore. Shannon?
No.
Right?
Exactly. And I want plates in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what Olga, our old maid, used to pleat our underwear, right? It was amazing. Bounce a quarter off the bed.
She did. My basketball shorts.
Oh, gosh.
Basketball shorts with pleats. I can't go to the court looking like that.
Does your maid does Mercedes do that now too for you, or is she a little different?
Not to that degree. No, not to that degree.
Give her some time, Shannon. Give her some time.
But, yeah.
But alternately, when we were in our house in Honduras, we had these apartments that we loved, right, Greg? So,
yeah.
But we had nothing. We had 5 outfits each. So I can imagine Olga ironing our clothes over and over because we didn't have that many clothes.
Well, Honduras is a very, very poor country. Still is. Remember, we made 6 figures, though. I told my father that when I first got hired.
Yes,
I'm like, Dad, I'm making 6 figures. Yeah. And then you divide that by 17. That was back then, of course. You saved a lot of money when you went to Honduras. We made nothing. Remember, we made like $12,000 to $15,000 each, but you guys paid off your bills even going overseas the first time. Didn't you pay off your school bills, Shannon?
Yeah. We paid off Shannon's, yeah.
And how's Ecuador?
We saved more money.
I have a question. You're making good money compared to the States, I would imagine. You're not? It's give or take, no?
It's the same. It's the same for me.
But your potential of savings, is it the same?
The potential for savings isn't the same, but there are many factors to consider. We have a mortgage at home. We didn't have a mortgage at home when we did this the first time. So we have bills at home that we're paying. So we were able to save a lot more the first time we did this, even though the salary was half.
You're growing up now. Yeah.
So we have responsibilities at home that we have to send a lot of money to. The other factor to consider is that it's very expensive in Guayaquil. Comparatively. It's more expensive than where we live in the States.
Yes, of course.
In Honduras, it was well less expensive. Cost of living was well less expensive.
So I have a very pertinent question. This goes back to our history too, but do you have chickens?
Not here. Bryn's going to hatch some this month. So yes, we will have chickens.
Brynn, can you tell the story about Honduras when we lived there and we were overseas teaching and living in the same apartments? Can you tell what happened around that Easter time of, what was it, 2002?
Yeah, I think it was, 2001. Joe comes home from school and they had gone to visit the chicken plantation because our parents owned these plantations. And he had brought home, I think it was 3 to start, wasn't it? 3 chicks?
I thought so, yeah.
Yes, I got 1 and you had 2. And
yeah. And one I think died right away. But unlike any other family, we of course set up we raised them there, and Joe named them Bruce and
Flaca and Gorda.
Flaca
David.
and Bruce, yeah, and Gorda, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
fucking right. Okay.
Bruce and Gorda. So we did have 3. And then, Greg, you have to finish the story because you tell it better than I do. When we came home.
I think my roommate and I were taking, by the way, shout out to Mike. He's in Thailand, I'm sure, still. Mike and I had the 2 chickens for Easter in our apartment. And also Bruce came the next day. Or the funniest thing was that your son came over the next day after that, and one of the chicks had died. So out of these 3 baby chicks, one chick died, and he goes, "Oh my God, Bruce is gone." And I have no idea how he chose Bruce, but Gorda and Flaca lived, Bruce died, and we don't know how he told the difference between them. We ended up raising those chickens, and if I'm not mistaken, Shannon, one of the dogs got, I think, one of the chickens, right?
One of the chickens, yes. When they were full grown.
One of the chickens.
And since you're farmers, Shannon's like, I'll take care of the other one. So you go out, farmer that you are. I don't know where you went to the guard shack. You took care of that other chicken, and we served it up, and it tasted horrible. I mean, it was absolutely horrible because they were not food they were egg laying chickens, right? They had the biggest feet. It was scary. Yeah. They were gross. Yeah, and they stank.
But the worst part was that he served it up and then threw it on a plate for Joe, for our son.
I might have promised.
Joe was like,
"Give it to the 5-year-old."
Flaca, He was, I'm sure
I can't tell you what an experience it was to go down to the little market in the middle of the town, in the middle of the city, like a farmer's market. And I'm looking at things. I get a baleada and I get a beer, and then I have to get a bag of chicken feed. That was a new experience for me. I never had to do that before. I'm like, here I am, a 5th grade teacher, and I've got to go buy chicken feed for my little apartment.
We had so many good times in Honduras. Just with our community and with the traveling we did, and just the weird expeditions and figuring everything out together. I mean, it was like family for sure.
Living overseas is such a rich experience. Teaching in the classroom, and then the life outside the classroom ends up to be so many, as many in the classroom too. But the stories of travel, the places that you're going to go.
Shannon, so we have a confession to make. We haven't been just stuck up in our house this whole time. We have done some adventures. So, and Shannon, you can talk a little bit about the places we've gone. So far, we've done some pretty cool things here.
Yeah, we've been we went to the beaches first. Playas is the closest, so that's only like an hour away, 45 minutes or whatever. And we've just been traveling north along the beach, little by little. Going to Montanita, going to Ayangue, places along the way. But we also have, everything's relatively close. That's an hour, 2 hours away from the beach. Cuenca is about a 5-hour drive, and that's up in the mountains. And we went up to a really cool little farm. I just happened on it through the internet. I was looking for places in Cuenca and happened on this one, and it happened to be one that 5 other teachers recommended from our school after they learned that I had already booked the reservation. We go up there, and it turns out the woman from the Midwest that owns it, the guy is, I think, she was from Wisconsin.
Must have been a great person.
They really were. They made good cheese. Some of the best cheese we've had here.
There's a Packer fan with a little mountain, village, like a little village farm, and that's where you went, of all places.
Just past Cuenca. They just happened to stop there. They've got a great little farm outside of Cuenca, the Chan Chan, and it was one of the cheapest. The reason I went there is because I'm cheap. It was $25 a night.
And
so I'm going to go there.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. What kind of animals did they have at that farm?
Cows, donkeys, goats, turkeys, pigs, all of your basic farm animals. So they had it all. It was really cool. It was really cool going up there. It was cold though. We weren't ready for that. I mean, it got down to 30s Fahrenheit. So we were not ready for that. No heat, just a little wood burner downstairs that you had to put a little piece of wood in. But then we also went to Baños. And if you haven't gone to Baños, Baños is kind of a touristy amusement park. It's like a giant amusement park. We went whitewater rafting, and I really thought Ceiba was really good rafting. This even tops Ceiba from Honduras. And we've gone rafting. I've gone rafting in Costa Rica. I've gone rafting in Colorado. Well,
Greg, when you come, we're going to Baños for sure. We'll take you to Baños.
Yeah.
That's where we will take you.
I love outdoor adventures. And, South America is so full of that. Going up into the mountains of Ecuador, going over to Venezuela, going in the Orinoco Delta, going in the jungles and the Amazon. Did I ever tell you the story about the piranhas in the Amazon?
No.
So, yeah, we went with a school-sponsored trip. I was one of the gringos that went on this trip. We went out into the jungles, and the kids, we stayed out there for like a week, and we were in the heart of the jungle and in this no man's land to the east of Venezuela. On the Amazon River, we took these boat tours one day, and they were going to show us how to fish for piranha. And I'm like thinking, oh my God, like those stories where, the goat goes in the water and all of a sudden everything bubbles up and the goat disappears, right? When we came back, we're having dinner. And there's this guy from Netherlands and a guy from Germany, and they told me this story in German because they didn't speak English. I said, "What's wrong with your face?" He said, "Well, my friend and I, we went out fishing with a special fisherman." And I said, "What happened?" He goes, "We were on the banks, and the guide had to stop to go to the bathroom. So he went off on this little path into the jungle, and we were fishing with our fishing poles, fishing for the piranha in the Amazon. And the guide comes screaming back, raving his arms, going, 'Bees, bees, bees!' And he's followed by this swarm of these big bees coming at him, right? Hornets. And the two guys are fishing off the side of the bank, with the boat sitting there half in the water and half out. The guys are standing a little bit apart. The guy comes running, the guide from Venezuela. He comes running through, jumps in, dives right into the water between the two guys' fishing poles. And the bees followed them. And both of the guys dive in the water after him. And I'm like, into the piranha water. And the bees followed them all like Crash Bandicoot. And one guy had put up his hood, and all the bees got into his hood. So when he went underwater, the bees were still stinging him. They're telling me this story, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm over here in the Amazon on some adventure with middle school, high school kids, and these two international guys have this story to tell me. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're on a farm or if you're hiking in the mountains or if you're down on the beach. There are experiences around every corner. Oh, man, we've talked about so much. Anything else you guys want to talk about? I mean, I could talk to you forever, literally.
One thing that we've really been able to compare also is just our stages in life moving internationally. When we went to Honduras, we were young, and, the apartment we moved into was so much nicer than where we coming from our college housing. So, and then moving here, initially we were put up in a condominium that was like the school condo, and here we are now, a family of 4 with 2 teenagers, and also our lifestyle sentiments. It was really difficult for us. Looking back, had we been in that condo situation in Honduras with all of you all, our family that we met in Honduras, it would have been just fine, but it was really hard for us. We were used to having our own space. We were used to being in the country. We were used to having a house, having a place to get away from each other. and we were kind of on top of each other. So that was a major adjustment, and we ended up moving into a house, switched housing, and that's something that wouldn't have happened before on our first experience. The school was really accommodating. We voiced our concerns. We weren't comfortable, and we were able to move into a house that was more suitable for our needs. It's been a very good reflective opportunity for us doing this at two totally separate times in our lives, from immature youngsters starting out to, we have some ways now, and we're still flexible people, but we've learned there are some thresholds.
Well, being flexible, you guys are so flexible with things, right? I mean, you have needs and stuff, but you sort of put a lot of those to the side. And it's really what your basics that you need. You need to watch out for your kids and yourselves.
Right.
The school accommodated you when you got there. You had to let yourself be known. You had to speak up to the school a little bit. Not complain, but be honest with them. If you're not honest with the school, then they're not going to be able to help you out. But in most cases, schools do listen. The top tier schools, the nicer schools.
Yep. So it was a matter of just sort of understanding what we are comfortable with, and knowing that we've changed. We're adults now, and we definitely don't have our U.S. lifestyle here, but we needed our privacy. They understood. So that was something that kind of floored me, because I've always thought of myself as being ultra flexible and able to
we get older, though.
Roll with the punches. Yeah, roll with the punches no matter what. But yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah, I'm older, and I do have some. We do have some things that we need. So that was a difference.
Like a swimming pool. Now, you guys have a house now. Is it like a 3-story house with a swimming pool in the back? I know we're doing this.
It's a really nice house. Yes, it's a really nice house.
Yes, it is.
And we didn't need all this, but this is what came. So, well.
Shannon, do you have a nice bar set up?
Well, when people actually get out, yeah. Actually, last weekend was the first time we'd really had people over.
We had a really good time.
Because honestly, nobody is getting out and really mingling much right now still. So even amongst the teachers.
I see you have this nice picture behind you, Shannon. I wanted to ask about that. Did you buy that artwork down there, or was this just provided? Was your house furnished?
Yes, it was.
Because they have a nice South listeners. They have a nice, beautiful little South American.
Yeah, she is someone that I would buy. Yeah, definitely. I would like to take that home with me. I think that would be nice. It would fit right over our mantle. Yeah,
your sarcasm is just
beautiful.
Dripping.
Yeah, she's a hideous, like Dora the Explorer.
It looks like Dora the Explorer from, but more of an Ecuadorian version of that, holding that lily like that. It's a furnished house, I would imagine. Yeah, beautiful.
But we do miss you, Greg. I mean, of course, having a second experience, we both are bringing up stories from Honduras all the time. It's so good to talk to you about your experiences too. And
well, when we go overseas, and listeners may not know this, but when we go overseas, your cohort, we consider it it's almost like a family sometimes. You become very close because of the hardships you're going through. In general, when you land in a country and you're going to school with, let's say it might be 4, it might be 10, it might be 20 or 30. You guys were in my cohort of Honduras. How many were in our cohort? Was it like 20?
I remember 9 of us together, and all the expat teachers from before had left, except for
That's
1 or 2,
right, because the schools go through that once in a while. They have like an exodus, something happens in the administration or in the government. But I remember Shannon going, "Who's the guy behind us? I hope he's not part of our school, And you told me that once, Shannon, because I was standing right behind you guys, and I have a loud voice. I have a radio voice, but I have this loud voice. And Shannon, you said that to me one day, like a year later, we're having a beer, and you said, God, Greg, you were standing there. I was like, God, that guy's loud. I hope he's not at our school. And yet, but the point is that we become a family, right? We still keep track of each other to this day. I actually, did I tell you I saw Mike in Thailand? When I went to Bangkok, I actually ran in and looked him up and ran into him and just had dinner. It was wonderful. So that's wild. But you don't always like everybody in your cohort, do you? You know, we had that one person. Yeah, we won't mention him.
Yes, that one person.
That one roommate that I had for a while. Yeah, we won't mention that guy.
Poor Greg.
Oh.
And then Mike also had a questionable roommate.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. And that guy ended up out. That I ran into him in Thailand too. I swear to God.
That's what I heard.
And Mario, he's back in California now, and just in case you guys didn't know. And Mooney is in Russia. He's been there for 10 years. He's at the embassy school there in Moscow and at the Anglo-American school. So shout out to Mooney if he hears this. I love keeping in touch with different people all over the world. And a lot of us are still in it. So I'm so happy you guys are back in the game. I mean, get yourself some chickens, make it feel better like in Honduras. I can't believe your kids are older now. I mean, they're in their teens, and I haven't even met. Oh, I did meet them. I came to visit you once in Iowa.
Yep.
And I saw them when they were little toddlers.
Yeah, I don't think Piper was born though yet, right? You had to have come before 2007.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I would love for you to mention about our fundraiser for David Chile. He's our janitor's son, and he is afforded his education in our school because his father works there. All of our teachers or janitorial staff or any worker, all of their kids get a scholarship to go to our school. But once school is done for David, his education stops. So because of the means of his family.
Okay.
So we are sponsoring him to take him, and he got accepted at UNI. They gave him a nice scholarship. He's got great grades in order to do that, but it still costs money. So we're doing a fundraiser.
Can the listeners somehow find your fundraiser on Facebook?
Yes. So we have a GoFundMe page, and if you search David Chile, Ecuador, Chle, he will pop up, and I'll also text you the GoFundMe.
I'll put it underneath in the notes. I'll start making notes.
That'd be great.
I've been talking with Brynn and Shannon. They were overseas in Honduras, spent 17 years back at home, and had some more kids on the farm before they moved overseas again. And they shared their times with us from Ecuador. And I want to thank you both for being on our show.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having us. Greg, it's always great to see you. We miss you.
Yeah, I miss you guys too.
I miss you a lot, bud. I hope you're doing well. And hope I can see you soon.
Well, that sounds like a phone call. Just kidding. Shannon, that sounds like a phone call. Greg, I hope you're doing okay.
Okay, take care.
I want it to sound, it needs to sound more like drunk.